Much, Mr. Chairman. 2 days ago, House Republicans recognized Law Enforcement Appreciation Day, and we have passed multiple bills to show support and help law enforcement serve their community. Meanwhile, you've got local elected officials and rogue district attorneys who have taken the side of defunding and dismantling the police, causing skyrocketing violent crime across the country. We continue to see our police make arrests and then rogue DAs fail to prosecute criminals. And for those who are convicted, we must ensure that they are not receiving taxpayer benefits. Last year, I introduced the Stop Funding Rioters Act, which would make a person convicted of assaulting a law enforcement officer or a felony in connection with a riot that destroys a small business ineligible for assistance or programs administered by the SBA. I look forward to seeing it marked up and passed in the House. And anyone who actively destroys a small business should not be allowed to receive funding from the SBA. You know, I'm listening to all of this information that is spewing out right now and talking about like the data and how we have to look at the data and the stats. For an example, 1 out of 4 women have been sexually assaulted. I guarantee you that has not been reported, and I'm really happy that we have not based our policies on just looking at the data, considering if you don't like the game, you can change the definition, you can change the rules, because that's what we've seen. People don't like the crime stats going up, so what you're doing is you're changing the definition of the crime. You know, when you say third assault, and a sexual assault is not considered a violent crime, somebody getting punched in the nose is not considered a violent crime, I'm sorry, but that seems pretty common sense. We're changing the definitions because we don't like where the data is going. So we're going to change it until we get where we like. There are no consequences right now. And in Dallas County, we had some riots a few years ago. I talked to DPS. I talked to people who were out there in the streets that were looking at businesses that were being destroyed. They were looking at cars that were being set afire. They looked at people that were being assaulted. They risked their lives. They got out. These were police officers. These were Department of Public Safety officers. They got out of their cars. They were trying to save people's lives. They risked their own lives because they had bricks, they had water bottles, they had rocks thrown at them. They were attacked. The very next day, our Dallas DA let them all out. Those people who had been arrested, let them all out because there's absolutely no consequences. When we talk about stats, I'm going to ask you, Mr. Scott, have you ever been, or any of your facilities, businesses, have you ever had something that you could have reported to the police, but because it was so onerous, you didn't?
Congresswoman, thank you for that question. The answer is absolutely yes. The time it takes to report incidences that will not get a response is better spent cleaning up whatever happened and moving on.
So it doesn't mean that the crime didn't happen. It just means that we have made it so difficult to report it. And because the odds are, 1, they're not going to be caught. 2, the police right now are so thin that actually even following up on it is going to be difficult. You would just rather get on with your life.
Absolutely. It's time consuming. The same thing, Congresswoman, happens with insurance claims. Insurance gets to the point where it's not worth filing a claim because the deductibles are so high. So it just kind of gets quite literally swept up, and then you move on. We have businesses to run, and this is very distracting.
And I appreciate that answer. Mr. Roach, I'm not going to ask you a question. I mean, you see this every day, and I'm from upstate New York originally, right? I mean, I always say I'm a New Yorker by birth, but I'm a Texan by choice. There's a reason why I moved out of your state, and it wasn't just the weather. Tell me what you're seeing up in New York. What could make it better? What are the policies that you think, like, for example, holding criminals accountable for their actions, having consequences? Again, it seems like common sense that if they can commit these crimes with no consequences, people are going to commit crimes. What are you seeing?
Yeah, prior to bail reform, I made a mention in my opening speech, when we would do a drug raid or if we would execute a search warrant on a drug house, we would arrest the individuals responsible for that. We would take them to court. We would arraign them. And typically bail would be anywhere from $10,000 to $25,000. As it stands now, when we execute a search warrant on a drug house, we bring the individuals back, we fingerprint them, and then we give them a piece of paper and tell them to go to court 2 weeks later. And if they don't show up to court, they get 3 tries before they issue a warrant. So yeah, it's very time-consuming and disheartening, to say the least.
Are you seeing these people show up to court? Are you seeing these people come back out and commit more crimes?
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right, I yield back. Thank you.